I hear people talking about storytelling all the time
Hmm.
as it relates to social media, but what, on a granular level, what does that actually mean? What does that actually look like?
Anytime I'm in a networking event and I tell people I used to be a third grade teacher and now I, am an entrepreneur, and that story always makes them remember me.
Mm-hmm.
So stories matter, your story matters, and it's just about packaging it.
Hello, and welcome back to Coffee Chats Podcast. Like I said, I'm bringing some really special guests on to this show so that you can get an understanding of what your story looks like from other perspectives, from other service-based businesses. And I want to be able to introduce you to Gina Oliver. Okay? Now, her bio was so special, so I'm just going to read it straight off. Now, I don't know if anybody else experiences this, but when you start trying to read something straight in front of other people, it's suddenly you become illiterate. So bear with me here. So Gina Oliver, after 4 years teaching third grade, she ditched telling stories to kids and now helps women share their stories online. She is the co-founder of Wave Enterprise Co., a location independent social media and podcast management studio that's helped over 50 female-owned wellness brands increase their online visibility. She's also the co-host of the Ripple FX podcast. Oh, I like that name. A show that explores the connections all around us and how they profoundly impact our lives. Welcome to the show, Gina. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So, we met online in one of the many networking things that everybody's constantly doing with their business and for their business. And I don't know, it's kind of like was a moth to a light. It
Hmm.
just, there was a click that kind of just happened.
Yeah.
How are you engaging with other people in that space? Like, how are you connecting with other people? Should I feel special? Am I not special?
Of course, you're special. Yeah, I actually have been doing a lot more events as the one that we met, like the small networking events online. And I've also been really tapping into local events where I'm living in Malta as well. That's sort of been my focus from last year, and I'm carrying that to this year as well.
Good. Okay. So you mentioned Malta
Hmm.
and you're a location independent social media and podcast management studio. Can you
Yes.
walk me through how you got to this point? Because you weren't born there, correct? That's
No.
not where you're originally from. What's the train of story?
Yes. So I'm going to try to consolidate it, but basically, it started in the US. My husband and I are from Chicago, the suburbs, but we lived in Atlanta, Georgia for 4 years. And in that time, that's where you're from?
I'm from, but I live in Greensboro.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
I don't think I knew that, or maybe I did. I don't know. But yeah, we were there for 4 years, and I was teaching third grade. And, I went to school to be a teacher, and it was always my dream. And after 4 years, I just remember like thinking about the teacher next to me, and she was like, I don't know, maybe 50 something. And I was like, oh man, I don't think I can do this for 50 more years down, or not 50 more years, but like until I'm 50.
Right.
And I was growing gray hairs. Like, I'm coming home from school just complaining and just in this vortex of like negative energy. And I just came home one day and I told my husband, like, let's move somewhere. And I always wanted to study abroad in college. It didn't line up. So I'm so grateful that he was on board with it. And we decided on the Philippines, which was the farthest place from home. And so basically, we had a whole year to plan. And we moved to the Philippines, and my husband had already started our business, Wave Enterprise, as a record label in Atlanta. And so we moved abroad, and maybe like 4 or 5 months into the journey, I was teaching remotely. I was teaching English. So I was still a teacher, but it was not working out so well because the internet where I was at was not really stable. And so I kind of had like a quarter life crisis and was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So what am I going to do? You know,
Yeah.
our identity is so tied to our careers, and it's really scary when you pivot. So as I'm crying, he's like, well, why don't you take this as an opportunity to try, like, we need a website for our business, we need social media, why don't you just try that out? And I was like, okay. And so I like to say that I became an entrepreneur by accident. So that's kind of where it started.
I think that's true for a lot of entrepreneurs, though. Becoming one by accident.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, it's some kind of problem that we had
Yeah.
or an experience very similar to yours where you're like, I cannot do this. I can't keep either. I can't find the answer to my problem, and then I spend all this time finding the answer, and now
Mm-hmm.
I need everybody to know that this answer exists.
Yeah.
Or on my end, I wanted to be able to control what my day looked like. I wanted to be able to control what legacy I'm creating for not just my family, but then also other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad you seized that moment.
Yes.
I had no idea that it started out as a record label, and you just kind of threw that in there like it was nothing.
Yeah.
What? How did you make the switch? What's because I know your husband's a DJ, right?
Yeah. So like he's a lot of things under the audio spectrum, but he started off as a musician. He's a pianist. He's been playing since he was like 5.
Okay.
And then he started music production. He went to school for communications and broadcasting. And so he has a lot of background in that, and then like video production as well. And then throughout our travels, he started DJing. So there was a lot of audio experience under, this umbrella of Wave.
Yeah.
And then when I became part of the picture, it kind of like morphed our passions and like what we're good at. And we made that our unique selling point.
That's good. That's hard to. I'm not married and I don't partner with anybody in that way. I can only imagine how the transition was being in two versions of relationships with somebody.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It was definitely challenging. Like for anyone who ever sees, our social media videos, like it's not all, cupcakes and rainbows, but it's been an interesting experience, and just learning how to like compartmentalize, like, okay, we're talking about work right now, like we can't let personal, relationship things affect it. And like, so there's been things that we had to, navigate like that, or, just how to merge our skill set, I would say was the more challenging part. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you say that, I think about my mom. I end up doing a lot of work with my mom.
Oh, that's
I think
cool.
she's like the bee's knees. I think she's
Aww.
amazing. Um, so a lot of our work ends up overlapping in similar ways to what you mentioned. So you spend time in the Philippines, but then how does that take you to, was it Marta?
Malta, yeah.
Malta, yes.
So we were in the Philippines in 2019, and we stayed there throughout the whole pandemic. And throughout that time, obviously, everyone was inside. So a lot of people started a podcast, which
Hmm.
was great for us because we were like, why don't we offer podcast services? And it just made sense because he had all the expertise of like, music production and engineering. So we were like, oh, we're going to add that to our, services and position ourselves in that way. And as well, like with the wellness aspect and why we like to work with wellness brands is because throughout this time, we were in the Philippines and then we moved to Mexico, Guatemala, back to Mexico, Italy, Tunisia, and now Malta.
Okay.
And in that time, we've gotten to experience a lot of different cultures, obviously, and just seeing how different people live and their perspectives. And it's helped me to unlearn a lot of societal norms, especially like in the US, as far as like work ethic and, just mental health and overall well being, and really embrace like some of the different ways other people in different cultures live. Maybe I'm not going to say better, but I'm going to say just different, and maybe that work better for me and how I want to exist in this world.
That's so true. Whenever I see you post on LinkedIn, I'm like, oh my gosh. One, this is crafted so well. When
Uh,
I think about social media managers, your name comes up first because you're actually doing it for yourself. A lot of people end up being able to do it for other people, but it's harder to do it for yourself.
yeah.
And everything that you just mentioned is conveyed in every single post. The engagement is there, the imagery is there. I don't know what systems you're using, but you're doing it.
That really means so much. Like, I really appreciate you saying that, because one of the things that I really value is putting my own business first. And that's, putting my own self first.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who are service providers just do their client work first. And I get it, it's so hard. But if you can't put your own stuff first and your own, posts, then like who is going to? So that's one thing that I've had to sort of form a habit around, and I'm glad to know that it's working.
Okay, Gina, you're in my business a little bit with that. Okay,
Oh.
I feel called out in the best possible way. That's good. So, how did you get to that place of prioritizing your business? I know a lot of times people can just say, "Well, it's just number one."
Mhm.
Yeah, but what are the steps that you would take to doing something like that?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say I'm not perfect, because I just got through telling you that we paused our podcast like in October. So I am not perfect,
Yeah.
and we are getting back onto creating episodes. But I would say a lot of times we just feel like it's such a big task, and it feels like such a burden almost to make content for ourselves or do the thing, whatever the thing is, like marketing task. But if you just spend like 10 to 15 minutes, like, okay, let me look through my phone and see what posts I can start creating from that. Or look through my notes app. I'm huge at using my notes app on my
Same.
phone. And like, what can I like use from this? Can I create a post out of this? Maybe I have an unfinished idea there. And just like giving yourself a micro like moment to start that idea, I think is better than nothing. So if you don't have, 2 hours, maybe you can just use 15 minutes and do it that way.
Hmm. That's true. Because I mean, even if it's not social media, the accountant still has to do their own books. So
Yeah.
there's a trade-off with that, even down to excuse me, even down to you having to figure out, okay, I know I'm going to do the client work regardless because that's what's bringing the money in to the
Mm-hmm.
business and helping this stay afloat. But then personally, there's a whole list of things that you aren't necessarily getting paid for
Mm-hmm.
that you have to do in your business. And one of those being social media marketing, content
Mm-hmm.
creation, the whole works. And
Yeah.
I'm proud that it seems very authentic whenever I see your posts, even in the moments of you pausing, you knowing what your limits are, you pausing your podcast. I think that's a great thing to recognize, especially as a service-based business, because we
Mm-hmm.
tend to take on a whole lot more than what we can do.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
So, what is the name is called Wave Enterprise?
Mm-hmm.
What's the thought behind this? I've created a whole story in my brain. I don't know if that's true.
Well, Wave Enterprise was a shower thought, and
Okay.
it was my husband's shower thought. And I don't know if you know the philosopher Alan Watts.
No.
Okay, well, he's a philosopher. He's not alive anymore, but my husband went through like a whole self development journey when we were living in Atlanta, and he's like a big influence. So he has a quote that he says, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's something along the lines of like, you are like a ripple in the ocean, and you're different, you matter, you if you weren't there then the whole ocean wouldn't exist, something along the lines of that. So that is kind of the basis of our our business, and like what we value as well, like throughout our journey, is just making these different connections traveling, and how this person connects you to this person, and then this whole chain of events happens, and it's
Right.
not an accident, and it's all divinely orchestrated. And it's just really amazing to think about how these different connections really impact our lives. And that's also the premise of our podcast as well.
That's good. Okay, so the story I created in my head wasn't that far off. It was in
Okay.
that philosophical
Yeah.
realm. That's really cool. Alan Watts is
Yeah.
the philosopher's name. Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
So that obviously influences the wellness work that you're doing, the
Mhm.
amount of traveling that you're doing, and being outside of the United States. Are a significant portion of your clients based in the United States, or is it kind of everywhere?
Yeah, most of them are in the US. We have one client in Bangkok, but most of them are, yes, in the US.
Okay, how do you, for my own interest, how do you manage the time zones that you got going on?
Yeah, I have a time zone converter app because I'm always like, oh my God, what time is it? So I had to like get used to that. When we were in the Philippines, that was the hardest because it was like 10 p.m. and we would be taking calls, and because it
Yeah.
was morning time in the U.S., so that was a tough time zone. And I think here in Malta is a sweet spot because like most of our clients are sleeping when we wake up, so we kind of have this space where no one's bothering us in the morning, and we can kind of go about our morning, and it's pretty great.
You are the true 5 a.m. People
Yeah.
by default.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. So, when you were talking about the name of your business, I immediately thought of what is the name of the show? It's the kids. It's the story of the kids, and I feel like as soon as I say it, it's gonna relieve me. There's these kids that have this father who dies in the in a fire,
Hmm.
and This Is Us. That's what it's called. Have you seen that?
Oh, yes, I love that show.
I love that show.
Yeah.
And it feels like your business is very synonymous with that as far as
Mm.
truly exposing the different angles and the different ripples that are created between somebody's action. Me simply being here instead of at a different meeting across town creates a chain reaction for other people, which is essentially what I'm understanding about your philosophy, right?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because that's one of like my favorite shows actually.
Same.
Yeah.
That
Wow.
will have me sitting in the corner crying
Every time.
every single time
Yes.
and love some Randall.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so how does that philosophy show up in your clients' work? Because a lot of times, within marketing, and I don't know if you feel this way, and it could just could be me just getting on my personal soapbox about it. A lot of times we try, or I'm seeing people try to put people through through a funnel of what works for other people.
Hmm.
If this person who's also a life coach or a health coach has 3 emails that go out every week, you should be having 3 emails that go out every week, or you should be doing something on TikTok or LinkedIn or Instagram. But it doesn't sound like that's the way that you approach things. Definitely not the way that I approach things. But how do you maneuver that through your client system?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think we're alike in that we have a very personalized and holistic approach, I would say. I think we really value just getting to know our clients and understanding like why they're in business, what their challenges are, of course, what has worked for them, what hasn't worked for them. And then the deeper things like, okay, you want to have 10,000 followers, but why do you want 10,000 followers? And then why do you
Right.
want that? And then why do you want that? Right? Like really getting down to that nitty gritty and asking, these deep questions, because a lot of times we just want all these followers because we think it equates to money, but it does not.
At
And
all.
yeah, so kind of just getting deep with them is one way that we take a personalized approach, and we are really like relationship first and building the relationship with the client. And something else that's really been working lately is using storytelling, and specifically, like, I'll give you an example. So we have, meetings every month with our clients, and in between those meetings, there could be, obviously life happens and it might be a disconnect from their content. So something that we've been implementing is sending weekly prompts, which are like reflective prompts that try and pull out little bits of their story and like lessons that they've learned, past beliefs that they've had, what they think now, how they overcame it, etc. And like this helps us to really weave their story in like little bite-sized posts, and just connect it a little bit deeper with their audience. So that's just like an example.
That's really good because at its core, people don't buy and don't do business with businesses. They do business with individuals and the individual stories that are there. Even
Mm-hmm.
down to when I first started, I was originally doing all of my marketing, all of my posts with under my business name. And then I said, I have a personality that's not being shown up here. Let me make a shift. So it's
Yeah.
really the personal brand that's showing up from what
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good that you made that shift. And I think like personal brands are like really becoming elevated and is going to be more and more what people want, because like you said, like people aren't going to buy from like a business who's like super like, tight and just like not sharing anything vulnerable or anything fun or personality like stories. Like
Right.
that's just not how it is anymore.
How do you get your client to feel comfortable sharing that with you? Like, what's the time commitment that goes along with that?
Um, I think it just comes with the relationships that we've built. Um,
Mm,
Most of our clients like have been with us since we've started traveling, and we're super grateful for them. And so we have like a good connection with them already. So I feel like there's already trust there. But um, we always, of course, approach each client differently. Like we're onboarding a new client, and like maybe something else is working for them. And so we always ask those questions like if there are any systems or approaches that you feel comfortable with already, like let's just kind of use that and not, start
reinvent the
something
wheel.
new. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm imagining myself, putting myself in your client's position, imagine myself getting this prompt from you every week or however often you
Mm-hmm.
end up sending it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, okay, I got all these things I got to do. And then Gina just sent me this email that has 2 to 3 questions that says, oh, wait, I'm a person, not just a business owner. What responses are you getting from them when you're sending them those kind of prompts? Are they obviously they're responsive because you're able to do the work, but then two, are they there's some level of appreciation that I assume would come along with asking what transformation have you made in your thought process along with some of the things that you're working on?
Yeah, I think like for one, that they appreciate the questions because it does help them think a little bit more deeply into their work and the impact they're leaving, and just to have a moment to just reflect and actually be accountable to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always simple, always like 1 or 2 questions. And like one of our clients she'll just send audio messages on WhatsApp. So it's very like low energy for her to do. And I can tell it's exciting to be able to like think about these things, and it's exciting for me because I get to learn something new about her. So
Yeah,
I think it's a really good process that we're going through with that.
that's good.
Yeah.
I You get to intimately learn about somebody, which I feel like we forget how intimate social media can be.
Mhm.
You're picking and choosing a story that you want to offer to some people, but it's an intimate experience.
Mhm.
Podcasting especially is an intimate experience. You're listening to somebody for 40 minutes to an hour, you're going to hear them say slip up in some kind of way. You're going to hear them
Yeah.
tell some version of story
Yeah.
that maybe they wouldn't have said in any other capacity, speaking on a stage or in a workshop, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
So that's very cool that you build that into your business.
Yeah. Thank you.
Of course. So, one of the things that I have my finger on the pulse from, or on the pulse of, is AI.
Mm.
And a lot of people are going to ChatGPT, they're going to Claude AI, and they're putting in prompts like, you are my social media manager. Please create 10 post ideas for a life coach based in North Carolina.
Mhm.
What's your immediate gut response to that?
I I think embracing AI is great and we use it a lot. Like we use ChatGPT a lot, Descript, all these different tools that do make your life easier, but at the end of the day, they are just tools. And like you have to be the human and you have to take those tools and like mold it into something better because AI is not emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Humans are emotional, and we need to, get that emotional aspect in there. And so, like the audio messages I was just telling you about that my client sends, I'll, for example, like take that, put it into Descript, make a translation of that, and help me like start thinking about the post idea. And so I use it as like a starter. And so that's one of the ways that I use it, but I have to mold it into what it's going to be shown to the world as. And
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT is not very good at writing.
At
It's
all.
no, it's very generic. So like people who are just copy and put, like pasting ChatGPT like captions or blog posts, like you can tell. And I think that's going to be the differentiator, like moving forward as more AI emerges.
Yeah. I feel like you kind of have to truly understand what you're asking for and what you want the output to be
Mm-hmm.
if you're really going to be using AI to its fullest extent. Because simply just saying you're my social media manager, it's just going to pull, it's not really synthesizing anything new. It's just pulling a bunch of random things off of the internet and
Yeah.
doing a bunch of pulling things, even if it's not searching from the internet, it's pulling a whole bunch of information that you've already given it, even if the information is wrong.
Yeah.
So the funniest thing is you can tell when somebody just copied and pasted something from ChatGPT, because I don't know about you, but my tell is there's always two random emojis after a paragraph or a sentence. Or I forget what the punctuation thing is, but it's like like you have a thought in the middle of a sentence and it's
Yeah.
that extra dash. I don't know what the punctuation is called, but you know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
People don't regularly use those.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's so true.
So along with AI, what other trends what other trends are you seeing emerge in the social media space? I think we talked about personal branding being more important,
Mhm.
AI. What else are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, storytelling is huge. And I think as well, what we talked about in the beginning is events and like forming your community around events, whether it's virtual or in person events. I think people are really craving the authentic connection. And it's just a really good way to get to know one another just a little bit more deeply. So I think those are the biggest ones.
Yes, I would agree. How I hear people talking about storytelling all the time
Hmm.
as it relates to social media, but what, on a granular level, what does that actually mean? What does that actually look like?
Hmm. I think like when we think of storytelling, people think like, oh, I have to tell my whole life story, or, I don't know how to package it, or like it just feels big and like, you know, like super complex, but really it could be just small moments, like relatable moments throughout your day that can be turned into a story. And it could be something super easy, or it could be like a story that's told through what I said earlier is like maybe you had a past belief that was holding you back in some way in your business, and now you have overcome that and you think differently, and that could be turned into a story. So there's a lot of different ways to approach it. And I think my former experience of being a copywriter, and I did a lot of work with an agency, like just doing ad writing and different things like that. So I got to sharpen my writing skills. And so that's where like the storytelling comes into play. And as well, like anytime I'm in a networking event and I tell people I used to be a third grade teacher and now I, am an entrepreneur, and that story always makes them remember me.
Mm-hmm.
So stories matter, your story matters, and it's just about packaging it.
People give Gen Z so much crap for like their car videos and their videos of them going through the store, but that's, from what I can tell, that's a version of them telling a story, because they're
Mm-hmm.
sitting down and they're like a little coffee chat. They're telling you this is a very specific thing that I experienced,
Mm-hmm.
starting with the main thing that I got out of it and down into the details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And that's what people like.
Gen Zers are very creative, I would say, and it's impressive.
Yeah. I say this as someone that's right on the cusp of Gen Z and millennial. I was born in
Okay.
97. So I'm watching. There's so many people who will say, I remember maybe 6 years ago, people who I worked with before starting this business were saying, what is y'all's obsession with driving and being and recording yourself? Because where are we going? I want to go too.
That's funny.
So I think that's it's a pointed way. I even saw a lawyer talk about how storytelling is a really key piece of how she wins arguments in the courtroom. Because
Mm,
for a jury, or a jury, we don't really get the wording of the
Yeah.
legal stuff, but I get that there's a villain and there's a hero, which is
Yeah.
how she phrased it at least. Um, which one is it? That's my responsibility as a jury. And as a
Right.
lawyer, it's your responsibility to present the information so that I can figure out which one to tell you it is.
Hmm.
But that's a piece of storytelling.
Yeah, that's very smart. And I mean, you have to keep people engaged, so that's a great way to do it.
Yeah. I definitely think the third grade to entrepreneur pipeline is one that's very unique. Because anytime I hear somebody who was a teacher who then became a business owner, it's always something related to like teachers pay teachers or they're creating something for teachers. But for you to step so far outside of the education world,
Hmm.
that is an interesting story.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
didn't mean for it to be a story, but it turned into one, and I'm embracing it.
Adding on all of this hopping from continent to continent, then
Mhm.
you're going crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what is some of the biggest mindset shifts that you had to make as you went from teacher to entrepreneur?
Hmm.
And even now, as it sounds like your business is maybe 4 or 5 years old.
Hmm.
So, what are the mindset shifts that you're experiencing?
One of the biggest ones is being a former workaholic and really having to detach from that because I really think it's so ingrained in American culture and it's just not in other cultures. Like when 4 p.m. comes in other countries, like they're done. Like they're not grading papers, they're not doing all this, extra stuff. Like they're done. And that is amazing and that should be the norm, I think. And that's why there's such high burnout rates in the US and like all these other things that come with being overworked. And I never noticed that I was doing that until I left. And so
Right.
sometimes like you don't even realize that you're, you know, like putting yourself through all this stress and like just working from 6 a.m. till, whatever, 8 or 9 p.m. And you don't realize what it's doing to your body until you stop doing it. And it feels weird when you stop doing it. You're like, but what am I supposed to be doing, And so embracing the spaciousness and like going on walks. Like I take my cat for a walk almost every day and like just being okay doing nothing. That's one of the biggest shifts I've had to embrace.
I did not know that dogs, or not dogs, cats go on walks. Like a leash and everything?
Oh, we're breaking societal norms for cats. Yes.
I respect it. I
Yes.
respect it. Yes. But I can empathize with that. I have been with even within the last year have been the person that literally fell asleep with my laptop in the bed with me. I've
Mm.
been the person that I remember going to the doctor one time and it was a regular checkup and the lady said, "Oh, okay, are you still drinking 5 cups of coffee every day?" And I said, 5 cups? When was I doing that?
Oh my
That's
gosh.
crazy. I said, "No, definitely not. At most, a grande at Starbucks."
Oh man.
That's insane. And
Yeah.
it took that moment for me to realize that that's you were on a deep end, one, but then two, what shifts can you make now that will help you show up differently for the people that you work for, your clients, your employees, your business partners? And then how do you talk about something else that's outside of your business? Because hobbies need to come back into culture. We need to create more hobbies for ourselves.
Yeah.
Everything doesn't have to revolve around your productivity.
Mm-mm.
Maybe your productivity is making an apple pie. And I say that because I made a bomb apple pie the other day. first from scratch.
I love
So
it.
I can empathize with that. And I'm glad that you have instilled that into your business. And it sounds like it gets translated to your clients, right?
Yeah, I would say so. And it's definitely like a work in progress. Like I always have to tell myself like, okay, Gina, you're doing too much. Slow down. Like take a deep breath. You know, my mind will race and I'm just like, all right, I need to step back. I need to have a break, whatever. So it's like always a constant thing. But I think it's just being aware that like you don't have to work all the time, you know, and you can still feel productive. Like you said, you can make a pie and feel like that was productive.
Yeah, 100%. And it ends up fueling the work that I'm doing anyway.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
something meditative about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Yeah.
So, what's on the horizon for you? I know I don't know, how long can you say Happy New Year for people? We're recording this in February.
It's so funny because I added one of my clients and I think they said after January, like 10th, we're done.
January 10th.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was
Hardcore.
every email, every email that I said, Happy New Year. So, within this still new energy, we're in the first quarter of the year. What's
Yes.
on the horizon for you this year? And what impact do you want your business to make this year, but then outside of this year? I don't want to give you the 5 years question that everybody wants to ask.
That's a good question. I am working on getting back on track with my podcast, like I said. So, consistently releasing 2 episodes a month, setting up our studio, and just inspiring people in that way in our bite sized episodes. And also hosting women's events here in Malta. My goal is one a quarter. And so this is like the first time I'm really being able to host business related events while we've been traveling because we never usually stay for this long where it's possible. So that's something else that I'm doing. And I guess the impact that I want to leave is just helping more women share their messages surrounding wellness, whatever that looks like, whether it's like a doctor, some sort of mental health practitioner, or fitness, you know, studios, like anyone who's helping the world heal in some capacity, I want to help them. So that's that's my impact.
That was good. I like that, helping the world heal, which
Yeah.
leaves it open for a whole host of people
Yeah.
while also we're not just here simply making money because you can have a business that has a whole bunch of transactions, but what's the impact that you're creating for other people? And it seems
Right.
like that's super ingrained into your business.
Yeah. Thank you.
So before we get to our faith note, I want to ask what are the top 3 things that people should be doing or that you recommend that people do for their social media?
Hmm. That's a good one. The first one is not trying to be everywhere, especially if you're a one woman show. Do not do that. It's going to burn you out. So focus on LinkedIn or Instagram or Pinterest or focus on one space and do that really well. And then when you feel comfortable or you get more team members, then you can expand. But that would be one. Two is to repurpose your content. Like we recycle paper and plastic and all these things and make them into something new. So do that with your content. Like look at what's already working, look at the footage you have in your phone and in your notes app and reuse that. And three would be to just have fun with it. Like social media, somewhere along the lines, like turned into this chore. And
Yeah.
I really want people to like bring the joy back into like creating content and just like sharing your experience and documenting your story. Like have fun. Like if it's not fun, then what are we doing?
I love that, especially when you're marketing your business or doing marketing at all. People can feel when you don't like what you're doing,
Yes.
regardless of what it is. Um, and if you're not having fun in your business and everything is not going to be super exciting. It's not super exciting to do bookings. It's not super exciting to um, figure out how to make this sales pitch or whatever the thing is.
Mm-hmm.
But the marketing portion should be the most fun part
Mm-hmm.
of that. I would totally agree.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we have our faith note.
Yeah.
We leave every episode with something that really encourages people,
Mm-hmm.
encourages me, encourages you. And myself, this podcast, and the business are really grounded in Matthew 17:20, which is if you can believe with the faith of even just a mustard seed that you can move a mountain from here to there, the mountain will move. And for us as business owners, we're moving mountains every single day. Us
Mm-hmm.
waking up to figure out how we're going to pay for our lifestyle, pay for employees, create impact for other people with what we're creating for within our business. That is
Mm-hmm.
a mountain in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the faith note that you can leave us with?
That's a good question. I love that you're doing this. I think I'm not necessarily religious, definitely spiritual and in tune. And I think something that I don't know the exact scripture, but it's something like when two or more people come together, then you can make things happen, basically.
Yes.
And my husband and I use that, like, if there's any challenge we're going through, whatever it is, like, when we're in agreement, like, it's happening. And the plan is happening. It's an action to our greater good. And so whatever challenge you're going through or anyone listening, like, if you partner with somebody or you share your thoughts and feelings with somebody else and you come together in agreement that this thing is happening and it's going to manifest how you want it to, then it will. And that's my message.
I love that. Thank you. I know that I can't remember exactly where it is. It shows up in two different places.
Yeah.
But yes, actually, that made me think about a different verse. Can I share it with you?
Yeah.
Proverbs 24:6. Surely you need guidance to wage war, and victory is won through many advisors.
Hmm.
Okay, I don't know about you, but I feel like waking up to create something within our business feels kind of like a little bit of a war. It's a
Hmm.
little bit of a hyperbole, but stick with me here. So the same way that where two or more are gathered, there he will also be. The same way that we are creating community for ourselves, the same way you're connecting with your husband, me with my mom to create businesses and
Yeah.
create impact. We need the advisors that are also going to help us win. So we
Hmm.
can't pretend like we have everything together. We don't know everything. I definitely don't know taxes. So that's just top of mind for me right now.
Same.
So if that's a person that, or if that's a thing that is a part of your wise counsel, a part of your advisory board, heck yes,
Hmm.
do that because that's
Yes.
where the victory comes from, whatever that victory looks like for you.
Yes.
Gina, thank you so much. You've been listening to Coffee Chats with Tahjma VanBuren from iMoves Management, a marketing agency serving small business owners. This episode was written, hosted, produced, and edited by me, Tahjma VanBuren. If you want to learn more about anything you heard on the show, schedule your content or SEO audit, or get resources to take action on your marketing strategy for your small business, go to imovesmanagement.com. Thank you to our listeners for supporting the show. Bye.